Coming up this morning, a Virginia state trooper killed last week in the line of duty is laid to rest. Plus, it's tax season and early filers are disappointed to be seeing smaller returns than what they got last year.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning. It is 6:30 on Monday, February 11th. I'm Will Puckett. Thank you for tuning into Mountain News this morning. Well, it's a severe weather alert day for what is seemingly the 500th day in a row. And Brandon's laughing because he's slowly, well, actually at this stage, quickly losing his mind. Brandon, rain, rain, rain is the name of the game. Yep. Not bad temperature-wise, but we're supposed to get so much rain that we're worried about landslides, rock falls, flooding, the whole gamut.
If we could get just a brief break, with a week break, I think we could get our ground a little bit more unsaturated, but it just continues in waves and waves and waves, and the moisture train is nonstop. Let's take a look at the camera network this morning here at 6:31 outside the WYMT studios in Hazard. Fog setting in. That's the story across a big chunk of the region. Heaviest rain is off to our north right now, getting a little break in most of our southern counties there, up toward the I-64 Mountain Parkway corridor, seeing some heavier bands of rain this morning. Flood watches were extended overnight for all of eastern Kentucky and most of southern West Virginia, southwest Virginia, and East Tennessee. Now, the counties there in green in southwest Virginia and East Tennessee are under a flash flood watch. All those go through Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening. Visibility rough across the region, so be careful out there. Dense fog is going to greet you as you head out the door this morning in wet roads. 30s and 40s for temperature, so that's not too bad. A normal day to a little extra on the coffee meter just because of the rain and the fog and because of the fact that it's just Monday. I'll have the rest of the forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. Will?
I hear my coffee calling my name. Thanks, Brandon. Colleagues and loved ones gathered in Virginia Saturday to say goodbye to Lucas Dowell. The 28-year-old state trooper was killed in the line of duty while executing a search warrant Monday night. A visitation was held Friday and he was buried after a funeral Saturday. Virginia State Senator Bill Carrico, who is friends with Dowell's family, praised him on the Senate floor Tuesday. He called Dowell the true image of a state trooper. Well, across the United States, communities are finding new ways to combat the opioid epidemic. In the South, where overdose deaths are on the rise in states like Tennessee, North Carolina, and Florida, there is a push at the local, state, and federal level to fight the deadly crisis. And one Pennsylvania woman is hoping to bring her mobile mission across state lines to southern states and throughout the country. Kristen Holmes rides along with her as she helps those on the tough road to recovery.
Thank you. See you next month.
It may look small and unassuming, but in the fight against the opioid epidemic,
how you doing, buddy?
This mobile clinic is saving lives, providing resources to areas and people that need them the most.
Your last use, I heard you tell Dr. Cook, was 12/3 of 2018?
Correct.
Okay. And any history of overdosing where they had to use Narcan to reverse you?
Like here in Pennsylvania, where according to the DEA, the number of drug-related overdose deaths far exceeded the national average in 2017. The mobile clinic is the brainchild of Amanda Cope, who is no stranger to addiction.
I became a daily drinker. By the time I was 16, I took my first drink at age 9. I ended up being 27 years old, drinking 2/5 of vodka a day to not be sick.
After hitting rock bottom, Cope entered treatment where the kindness of a nurse changed her life's course.
That was the first time that somebody saw me for what I was and showed me compassion and empathy. And it was, I say to this day, the most profound moment of my life, because in that moment, I said, I'm going to be that for somebody one day. By saying yes.
And she is. Now sober for nearly 13 years, Cope is a registered nurse and the chief operating officer of Positive Recovery Solutions, an addiction recovery clinic created by her and her cousins. After learning some of her patients were driving hours just to get treatment, Cope hit the road to close the distance between addicts and treatment. PRS combines a monthly injection that stops cravings for opioids and alcohol with counseling. They now have roughly 580 patients and have expanded to Ohio, with plans in place to open in Kentucky, Indiana, and Florida.
We want to be kind of that hope for people that are in the same situation that we were.
I'm Kristen Holmes reporting.
Now, New York Senator Chuck Schumer announced yesterday he will introduce a bill that will hold international chemical and pharmaceutical companies accountable for exporting fentanyl into the United States. Schumer says tens of thousands of Americans die annually from fentanyl overdoses.
We all know what fentanyl is. It's one of the deadliest drugs that we have ever come across. It's a synthetic opioid. It's 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin. You can sometimes touch it and it kills you.
Well, it is tax season and it is off to a slower start this year. And early filers are seeing smaller average refunds. The Internal Revenue Service says the average refund so far is down about 8% under the first full year of the overhauled tax code. The total number of returns received by the IRS also dipped during the first week of the season, which ended February 1st. This tax season will be watched closely for the real impact of the GOP-led tax overhaul in 2017. Now, how much of your seafood gets looked at for dangerous bacteria and drugs before you buy it? Not much, according to government reports. Investigate TV's Lee Zurich looks at how that's affecting American fishermen and what's making it to your dinner table.
Fishing is more than business for A.C. Cooper.
My father's a fisherman, his father was a fisherman. My kids are fishermen, my son-in-law is a fisherman. So it means a lot to us, you know, it's a way of life.
The longtime Louisiana shrimper's worried his way of life may be in jeopardy.
They're slowly killing us.
What's impacting his bottom line might impact you too when you go to a restaurant.
If they worried about their health, it is a serious issue.
The issue, imported seafood. Cheap foreign shrimp are pricing Cooper out of the market. 90% of the seafood consumed in the United States is imported.
I hate to scare the American public about what's going on, but they really need to know where their seafood's coming from.
Investigate TV has found a sliver of imported seafood is inspected or tested.
How much are we missing? Potentially a lot.
The Government Accountability Office has published several reports on imported seafood safety. According to the GAO, just 2% of foreign seafood is inspected and less is tested for drug residue. 0.1%.
Producers will use drugs, for example, antibiotics, to make sure that the fish in those conditions are kept alive. The concern there is that the antibiotics and the residues from these drugs are kept in the fish through processing and harvesting, and ultimately will be ingested by the consumer.
Investigate TV analyzed seafood refused for import and found hundreds of shipments turned down in the last 4 years for unsafe drugs. The majority of those farmed shrimp. This may give you perspective on how little they're actually looking at. In 2015, nearly 1.3 billion pounds of shrimp were brought into the U.S. The FDA only tested 550 samples. But get this, of those 550 samples, 12% of the time, inspectors found unsafe amounts of drug residue.
If you extrapolate it from the sample, it becomes a pretty big number pretty quickly.
They got containers and containers coming into this country that nobody ever looks at. It just goes straight to the source, straight to where they want them to go, and nobody ever tests it.
Until the standards are tougher, A.C. Cooper will try to hold on to his livelihood.
Now, Investigate TV is WYMT's national investigative team. There is a free Roku and Amazon Fire TV channel. To learn more about the team or add the channel, go to investigatetv.com. Well, Virginia's political soap opera is getting ready to start a new chapter. Articles of impeachment are expected to be filed against the state's lieutenant governor today. Justin Fairfax is accused of sexual assault by 2 women, one a rape. Fairfax admits to encounters with the women, but says everything was consensual. Meanwhile, Governor Ralph Northam remains defiant in the face of his scandal, saying he won't step down.
There's a theory of damage control in these kinds of scandals that says that if you just weather the storm and disappear for a while, you can come out the other end several weeks or months later, and people will have cooled down.
Now, the governor has been under pressure to resign because of a blackface photo that appeared on his page in a medical yearbook decades ago. Time will tell if these scandals will have a long-term effect on the party. Now, the state's Attorney General Mark Herring also said he wore blackface at a party back in 1980. Well, U.S. Senator Amy Klobuchar has announced her candidacy for President of the United States at Boom Island Park in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Sunday. On a snowy day, the Minnesota senator declared to the crowd of supporters, enough is enough of the shutdowns, showdowns, and grandstanding. Klobuchar has become the most prominent Midwestern candidate as her party tried to win back voters in a region that helped put President Trump in the White House. Well, yesterday, New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand visited various churches across the Low Country to promote her recently announced 2020 presidential campaign. Gillibrand has been in South Carolina all weekend pushing her campaign message of a need for change, saying that things are broken, so they need to be fixed. And Elizabeth Warren is officially running for president. In a rally, Senator Warren set a populist tone for her campaign. Warren pledged to refuse donations from lobbyists and corporate PACs and said she will fight against wealthy power brokers. Well, 6:41. Let's check in with Brandon for another look at your weather on this severe weather alert day as rain falls across the region. Brandon.
That's right, Will, and we're taking a look at Buffalo Mountain's camera this morning. You can't even see the blinking lights there in the distance of the transmitters over there, so we're going to continue to see dense fog in some areas this morning. Live pinpoint Doppler radar, a lot of rain, heavy rain up north of the I-64 corridor this morning. Mostly light rain across the southern counties, but be careful. It's been raining off and on throughout the night. We're going to continue to see that as we head deeper into the forecast as well. Flood watches were extended across all of eastern and southern Kentucky, southwest Virginia, and East Tennessee under a flash flood watch. All those run through tomorrow afternoon or early tomorrow evening. Visibility numbers pretty rough across the region. Less than a mile in a lot of locations, so be careful. Give yourself plenty of time to get out the door. Temperatures, though, fairly mild for mid-February. We're looking at 39 Jacksboro, 40s pretty much everywhere else. The out-the-door forecast for you this morning as you head out the door. We are going to see those rain chances continuing. Some fog around pretty much all day, but temperatures in the mid-50s. Will?
All righty. Well, we will have stories trending on WYMT.com next. As always, thank you for joining us on Mountain News this morning. Coming up after the break, we catch up with Dolly Parton on the red carpet at the Grammys.